I generally don't like to go down the rabbit hole of saying, this is why there's so many problems with young people these days. This is why they're so mentally fucked up. This is why they're this is why they're that. Because, hoo boy, that rabbit hole goes deep. However, one of the big causes of a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of this, a lot of that, a lot of made-up disorders that probably don't exist as well, but, a lot of weird crap among young people is fear of failing at things publicly. For example, one thing that always got to me, made me laugh, is that a lot of kids at my school who don't really care that much at all about their grades, let's be honest, are deathly afraid to present in front of the class. This, as silly as it sounds, makes sense with how much young people besides myself tend to, base a lot of their identity, a lot of their feeling of self-worth around how they're perceived by others. However, they are often mistaken, actually, when it comes to the factors that influence how others see them, and how easy it is to turn others against them. Why are kids so nervous about playing in sports games? Why are kids so nervous about getting up and presenting in front of the class? Because they're afraid they're going to fail. But of course, failing in itself, nobody cares. Because you don't care at the end of the day how good you are at presenting, because all that matters for is your grade, and you don't give a crap about your grade. You're a high school student. Pfft. Grade, who cares? And in the sports game, you may really want to win, you may really like the sport, but, winning in itself, you're not getting scholarships, most of these guys at least, off of your sport. There's nothing, on the line, besides, so to speak, how people will perceive you. But that's actually really not on the line. It may have been on the line in earlier times. I can't even comment on that. I wasn't alive back then. I should probably ask my history teacher. He knows so much about elections like 1812 because he voted in them. But these days, that messaging worked. That messaging of just accept people for who they are. It doesn't matter how well you do. It matters that you try hard and have fun. People can talk all day about the good about this, the bad about this, participation trophies suck, blah, 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 blah. That I kind of agree with, but, that's besides the point. But for better or for worse, that messaging has in fact taken root in our society. People do actually look for the positive in most cases. People do actually come to you after a defeat and say, it happens, yeah, you get up, you keep going, because in every single movie, what have we heard? I'm Cale Sanderson, let's say, I dealt with a lot of defeat before I became really good at wrestling. Okay, Cale Sanderson's a really, really bad he's a bad choice for that example, actually, because he was undefeated. So, but you get the point. And I'm Anthony Robles. I had to push through a lot of defeat due to not having a leg. But I eventually became a national champion. That messaging that you can do anything, overcome defeat, you just gotta get back on in the saddle and work at it. It's taken root. So at the end of the day, nobody is going to reject you because of how you perform in public, in sports, in this and that. How you perform, for example, in your job. There are things where performance, which may or may not be public, but usually isn't in those cases, may be very important. But when it comes to sports, when it comes to a class presentation, there's the grade. But, the fact that it's in front of other people is not really important. Because something you gotta understand, you're not important enough to people for them to be really mean to you. Most of your classmates, most of your coworkers, even a lot of your teammates, let's be honest about it, do not give a flying rat's behind about you. They're not gonna waste any of their time crowding around and be like, ha ha, loser, you failed. Even if they may think, what a loser, they're not going to do anything because you're not important to them. You're not important to most people. You're not the main character. So even if they don't really feel the sentiment, if they see you fail, they're just going to say, yeah, it happens, yeah, get back on the horse, kid, yep, yeah, work hard, achieve your dreams, blah, 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 yeah. And also, for better or for worse, let's be honest, most of the people who do actually care about you will make up every excuse under the book for why you failed. Even if you're not making excuses, and you probably are, you shouldn't be, but you probably are, they will be making up excuses. My mom makes up a lot more excuses about my losses on the wrestling mat, I can tell you that. But being honest, I don't think most people watching this video will really, in their heart of hearts, believe what I'm saying until they prove it to themselves in real life, as I've proven it to myself on the wrestling mat, on the track, playing banjo in front of people. The little slip-ups that you do, even big slip-ups that you do, at the end of the day, go out, do it, prove to yourself that you can fail, and because you're really not that important, people really just aren't gonna care.